If you went to one of my close friends and asked them to tell you one thing about me, it would probably be that I'm a dumbass. But if you asked maybe 10 more times, they would tell you about how much I enjoy playing healers. I've probably played every type of healer under the sun probably 6 times over, but the one I've spent the most time playing is Team Fortress 2's Medic. Almost 7 years of my life, to be exact. It's honestly a bit sad, and I'm not really sure why I spent so much of my life playing a character from a debatably terrible game like TF2. But I digress. The reason I'm making this video is because one day in a manic state, I decided to get all 4 of the Medi guns to Hale Zone and explain the journey. To be completely honest, I'm currently teetering on whether or not I regret this decision. Saying a couple of these were hell might be an understatement. Stock needs no introduction. Being the starting Medi gun, it's the one quite literally everyone has used if they've played Medic. Assuming they've played him correctly, that is. Despite it being the basic Medi gun, it's far and away the best of the 4. Seriously, this really just comes from its insanely strong ubercharge being straight up full invincibility. To be perfectly honest, because I got stocked to Hale Zone before even wanting to do this video, I can't really say how hard it was to get there as well as I can with the other 3 Medi guns. However, I can say it was easy enough just from playing competitively that I did it twice. Here we have the stats. Since there were 17,000 Ubers, all I needed to do was chop those numbers in half and we get a decent baseline to compare the other Medi guns. With the halved stats, we have 8,500 Ubers, 23,785 kill assists, and 5,289,644.5 healing. You can round up or down, I don't care. It's a free country. Oh, and a small note, for all the Medi guns, this number here is a lie. This number actually only considers Ubers used on an ally. Even if you pop on yourself and immediately heal someone, the Uber's not tracked. So every panic pop when you were charged at by any number of players whose sole purpose in life is to kill one medic, guess what, dumbass? That's not tracked. Screw you. I only mentioned this because if it didn't require this stupid little thing, this video would have been out much sooner. The top Medi gun for all medics who also happen to be e-girls. The Critical Krieg is a great choice if you want to pocket your friend and claim you are good at the game. Kritz is the closest side grade to stock, sharing identical stats save for build rate and a vastly different ubercharge. Instead of the full invincibility that stock gives, Kritz grants your heal target full crit rate, tripling their damage output. This was obviously the easiest of the 4 to get to Hale Zone, due to its completely unique leveling stat of kill assists as opposed to Ubers. However, this also means I have the least experience using this as opposed to the other 3. Although there really isn't any hidden tech or anything with this gun, it's honestly pretty straightforward. You right click on someone, if they have more than 2 or 3 brain cells, the entire enemy team should be dead. My only tip for Kritz is to avoid using it on payload offense. Not saying you can't or anything, but Kritz works best when players are going to you, not the other way around. Not to mention sentries, which can't be affected by crit damage whatsoever. Alternatively, there is its usability in competitive, mainly 6s, where even still it's almost always outshined by stock and is really only used when both medics die during a midfight. Kritz was obviously the odd one out with the stats, and since I can't be bothered to get 8,500 Ubers on it, I'm just gonna use the current stats and use some math magic to make the stats more easily comparable to the other Medi guns. Honestly, pretty standard. The stats make perfect sense given the Kritz Krieg strengths. It has higher kill assists because that's kind of its whole shtick, and less healing simply because you can get Ubers faster. Nothing to really see here. This Medi gun is pretty polarizing. When it's good, it's really good, like better than stock good, but when it's not great, it's the worst thing ever, giving it my lovely nickname of the best worst Medi gun. The quick fix is an interesting side grade in that it focuses more on medics healing at the cost of having the max overheal limit. While on paper this might just sound better overall, you also trade an Uber with full invincibility for a massive healing boost, which, granted, does have its benefits, but we'll get to that later. Getting this to Hale zone was surprisingly long. Break from the game aside, quick fix doesn't give you the same safety net that the Medi gun does. You can get sniped, backstabbed, random crit, even outdamaged by a scout who can aim somewhat well, even during your Uber. The nicest part that really helped it go by was its build rate gimmick. Be it a glitch or intentional, the lower overheal cap means it never goes above the Uber building threshold of 50% overheal, allowing it to build at max speed, assuming they've never get healed above the quick fix's limit. This overheal nerf isn't all good though, obviously. Despite the faster healing, the health loss means it's actually a bit harder to keep your allies in the fight, even if you are constantly healing them. Quick fix is a perfect example of two things: how strong overheal is, and how overheal is Medic's strongest non-Uber contribution to his team, rather than his healing, which is honestly not bad, but without the help from a certain overpowered game-breaking primary weapon, it's far from great, being easily the worst type of healing: single target, short-ranged, and sustained to be exact. This is why I think the quick fix really shows how strong the medic's ability to overheal is. Even when having the already small on paper maximum overheal makes a huge difference in the survivability of your team. Quick fix's main strengths are getting allies to full HP quicker. More specifically, if multiple people are low, you can get each one in a better spot much faster than with stock, and its unique mirror mechanic, which allows you to mirror rocket jumps, sticky jumps, and demonize charges when healing an ally. This allows you to stick to more mobile classes and get to places you otherwise can't. The quick fix's Uber charge is also unique in that, while active, it prevents knockback from other sources like explosions and the Pyro's oh so annoying Uber snuffer, the air blast. Just pray you don't have another medic using stock or people sitting in dispensers, because quick fix is very reliant on its Uber and the healing output it provides. If you are with another med, the overheal they give will usually make your faster charging gimmick almost completely useless, since they will be able to bring them above your overheal cap, effectively negating the stat entirely, and at that point, you might as well just run stock. It might sound like I dislike the quick fix, but it's probably my favorite of the four. Oh, it's probably just cause you have brain rot and like the bigger heal numbers. Yeah. It's also the most fun, and I can just turn my brain off, so there's that. So, not gonna lie, this was pretty surprising. Not sure if I suck, but this has more kill assists and less healing than what the stock averaged out to. The kill assist part is the main surprise though, not the healing. If anything, this really proves just how much value overheal gives to your team. To be honest, I'm sure the big number discrepancy is from how safe quick fix allows you to play, since you get max Uber charge rate nearly 100% of the time. And since the number right there is really all I cared about, I'd mostly sit back getting as many Ubers as I could, having people come to me rather than risk my life getting a few extra green numbers. I apologize in advance for what I'm about to say, but I think this weapon kinda sucks. Now wait, before you get angry, hear me out. It's annoying as hell to fight, I can't argue that, especially on smaller servers, but it's almost a throw weapon outside of small fights, especially when compared to the other Mediguns. Instead of one big and powerful Uber like stock, you get a max of 4 charges, which can be used to give one of 3 resistance buffs, those being bullet, explosive, and fire. While resistance is active, healing an ally grants both of you a nifty 10% damage reduction to whatever damage type you've selected. If you use one of the charges, this 10% buff instead becomes a whopping 75% resistance on top of a full immunity to crits for 2.5 seconds, assuming the incoming crits is whatever resistance you've used. This, paired with having up to 4 charges and Ubers not fading if you were to use one and then heal another ally, gives you a lot of coverage for your team. That's about where my good things to say ends. Getting the Vaccinator to Hale zone was borderline torture for the majority of the time. Remember how I said earlier that the Quick Fix's greatest weakness was its overheal nerf? Well, this has that, but twice. Overheals and builds uber charge from overhealing much slower. Sure, the resistances are pretty nice and can save people from things they might otherwise die from, but you know what else does that and doesn't have a ton of counters? Basically any other uber. Vac's reliance on needing to heal to build means if you're in a grace period where you would usually just buff allies, you instead get very little. The main problem I have with the Vaccinator is just that the ubers aren't good enough to warrant the downsides it has. Vac ubers are basically nothing more than an annoyance to the enemy team. They aren't awful by any means, but Vac is only really good at dealing with niche scenarios like very steady streams of a single enemy dealing damage to your ally, or, multiple of a class strong with a single damage type like scouts, demos, and heavies. But again, you know what else counters those pretty well? Any other Medi gun paired with someone who plays correctly. Or just arrow tanking. As stated previously, Vac Ubers are also criminally easy to counter. You can kite them really easy for one, or you can just use weapons that make it quite literally useless. For one, melee, the weapon type every single class has. Sure, some do it better than others, but simply meleeing an enemy you know is low, even when bubbled, works plenty. Enforcer just invalidates the Vac, since it isn't bugged anymore and actually ignores bullet resistances. Obviously that includes the bubbles. But hey, surely the fire resistance can counter something that does crits like Vaccinator or Backburner. Nah, not really. Just the flare guns if anything. Backburner is countered by facing the pyro and knowing he's there, and I doubt you'll use a fire bubble just in case you get snuck up on by a cheeky pyro, rather than just, I don't know, looking at him. But Fog doesn't give you that benefit, having full crits at the measly price of spamming scorch shot flares at players who can't tell which color team they are on. On paper, yeah, the Vac Bubble's crit resistance should easily neuter the pyro and send him back to hell, but thanks to Valve's brilliance, all flamethrowers reduce incoming healing, most notably from the Medi guns. So, in reality, the Fog melts the fire res as if it wasn't even there. Despite these points, the Vaccinator has its fair share of haters. I regret not taking more screenshots of people complaining about me using it, on both teams too. My team would hate me for using it because it's bad, then the other team would hate me for using it because it's annoying. What a neat weapon. Thankfully, at least, this one didn't take too long, because damn did this weapon get boring after a while. Yeah, this one isn't surprising at all. It's a Medigun with a lower overhealing output, but since it's mainly good at flashing people in with a bubble or two, rather than pocketing someone, the low kill assists is something I would be lying if I said I wasn't expecting. Also, between you and me, a good 2,000 Ubers or so were definitely from spamming them in payload setup times, but hey, it's Hale's own, so. While doing this, there were a couple things I noticed and wanted to mention, but couldn't really find the time or place to put them since they're mostly just neat rather than actually useful. So here, a little bullet round-esque tips segment or something, I guess. I don't really know. Avoid healing people with mediguns while they are getting healed by a dispenser, as similar to how two medics trample over each other's ubercharge rates, the dispenser slows it down as well. So if you see someone in dire need of healing, just arrow them instead. Avoid healing full health Razorback snipers as much as possible, since they can't get overhealed. You're not really building much uber, as it's considered them being at full overheal rather than no overheal. Mediguns don't mirror the speed of soldiers using the escape plan, however it does mirror Babyface Blaster's speed boost, so I'm not really sure what's up with that. When using the quick fix with a friend, try having them run the Soldier's Battalion's backup. The backup's crit resistance and damage reduction paired with the quick fix's knockback resistance and high healing makes this combo nearly unstoppable. Just watch out for spies since you can still get backstabbed. Be it a glitch or intentional, Quick Fix does not block cart or caps on defense the same way stock Uber can. This also means it can't be used to push the cart either. Stay in the passive bullet resistance as much as possible while using the Vaccinator, as it can save you from a headshot or a fully charged body shot. The Vaccinator bubbles stay the full duration if you stop healing, so spread them out if needed. The bubbles on yourself do go away if you switch weapons, however. Vaccinator bubbles reduce self-damage from pyro secondaries like Scorch Shot and a Detonator, however this is not the case for Demo and Soldier, who are not affected by the explosive resistance when calculating self-damage. Despite being energy weapons, Cow Mangler, Righteous Bison, Thompson 6000, and Man Melter can be blocked with the Vaccinator, with Cow Mangler being explosive, Bison and Thompson being bullet, and Man Melter, obviously, fire. However, this stupid ass weapon, the Short Circuit, completely ignores it, as if it wasn't annoying enough. Using a Vaccinator charge then arrowing your ally is the best thing you can do on the Vaccinator, since the arrow's healing doesn't get reduced like it would with say the Rescue Ranger and Wrangler. So yeah, that's about it. Ranting about my dislike for the Vaccinator aside, I do enjoy each one in their own way, and this was incredibly fun at points to accomplish. If I had to rate them in like a tier list or something, it would be this. Take this how you will. I didn't want to get too in-depth with some of my points to avoid this just becoming a full-on guide, but thanks for watching the video. It's the first one I put a bit of effort into, and hopefully it shows. If there's just anything you should take from this video, however, it's just that literally every Medi gun is just outshined by the crossbow.